Renters are finding fewer affordable homes and apartments as the city sees a decline in units. A new study from DePaul University shows the city experienced a 5.2% decline in affordable rental units over the past decade, and the share of lower income renters who face housing insecurity has grown. Joining us now to talk about this are Jose Munoz, Executive Director of La Casa Norte, an organization that serves youth and families confronting homelessness, and Jeff Smith, Executive Director at the Institute for Housing Studies at DePaul University. Welcome to Chicago Tonight, both of you. So first, the north and northwest sides are seeing a particularly steep decline. So comparing affordable units from the average of 2012 to 2014 against the average of 2017 to 2019, Logan Square in Avondale lost about 14% of affordable housing. Portage and Jefferson Park lost 12%. And Lincoln Square, North Center, and Westtown, and near West Side, both of those lost a little over 11%. Jeff Smith, let's start with you, please. Why are we seeing this decline?
Well, I think what we're seeing is, the effects of the market on housing affordability. When we look at affordable housing, there are really two components that make up housing affordability. One is directly subsidized affordable housing units, but the other are just sort of lower cost rental housing units that are cheap because they're in older buildings owned by small renters, small landlords. And those types of units are really vulnerable to rising demand in the market from higher income households. And those neighborhoods that you just mentioned are all neighborhoods that are really experiencing that type of increased demand for housing.
So what do these findings then tell us about what's happening for low income renters?
So, what we're seeing is that, the rental housing affordability challenges that we're seeing in the city and really in cities across the country are largely driven by pressures on the affordable rental supply. And what that means is as there are fewer and fewer affordable rental units out there, that means low income renters are struggling to find affordable rental housing, which means that they either have to move elsewhere to neighborhoods or parts of the region where there is more affordable housing, or they stay in place and just pay more of their income towards housing costs.
Jose Munoz, is this surprising that we're seeing this decline on the north and northwest sides? What would you say is contributing to that?
Well, I think what we're seeing today is that this is decades in the making. We've seen individuals and families being priced out of the community. One, because rents keep going up. Developers are purchasing properties and rehabbing them and making them less affordable for individuals. So individuals are really being pushed out of the community. At the same time, we haven't seen increases in wages and jobs grow enough to a point where individuals are able to raise their incomes to be able to continue to afford that housing. So that's made it very difficult for people to be able to stay in their community.
And Jose, how much of a factor is gentrification?
It's a major factor. I think that's probably one of the biggest contributors to the fact that individuals are losing out on housing. As I mentioned, individuals just there aren't enough single family homes or smaller units that people can afford. So they have to go and find housing elsewhere.
So Jeff, Cook County is also seeing a loss of low-income renters, who are the largest group of renters in the county. Why is that?
Well, again, I think that, it's hard to pin down the exact reasons, but I do think that a contributing factor certainly is this issue of declining affordability in many neighborhoods, both in the city of Chicago and in suburban Cook County. As renters struggle to find affordable rental housing, they have to either, again, make that choice of whether or not they want to, stay in their community but pay more and maybe continue to put pressure on other types of monthly costs, or move elsewhere to find lower cost housing.
Now, this study measured up until 2019, so right before the pandemic. Jose, what effect has COVID had on the affordable housing market?
Well, I think the biggest impact has been on renters. We've seen a steady increase of individuals who can't afford rent. Now, there was a moratorium in place that allowed individuals to stay housed, but as that was lifted, individuals are having a hard time being able to keep up with rent. Now, luckily, there have been a lot of rental assistance programs We participated in a few through the state of Illinois, the city of Chicago, to try to help individuals be able to cover the cost of their rent. But it still continues to be an issue. Again, we're facing a situation now that's decades in the making. We've seen disinvestment in Black and brown communities for decades, and now as the market went down, developers purchased up those properties, rehabbed them, rebuilt them, and put them at a price people out. And so, and even though we try to keep up with by creating a more affordable housing, there's just not enough housing available for individuals with lower incomes.
So, Jeff, this study also measured Cook County's affordability gap. First, tell us what that gap is and where is the county in closing it?
So the affordability gap is essentially the mismatch between the number of low-income renters that need affordable rental housing and the supply of affordable units that would be affordable to those low-income renters at 30% of their monthly income. And it's an interesting equation because what we've seen recently is actually the affordability gap. That mismatch has gone down and it's actually shrunk in the city and in the county. But the reason that it's shrunk is not necessarily good reasons. We've seen actually a decline in those low-income renters, meaning there's actually a decline in quote-unquote demand for affordable rental housing. So you're losing low-income renters and you're also losing that affordable rental supply. So, I think that even though that gap might be shrinking slightly, I think there are broader problems that are revealed by sort of some of the inputs that go into that calculation.
Yeah. And Jose Munoz, before we let you all go, how do you think, or what do you think the city should be doing to close this gap?
I think continue to have rental assistance programs like we have in place right now that allow individuals, at least right now, on an emergency basis, to be able to access funds to continue to stay housed and pay their rent. La Casa Norte is operating some of those funds both through the city and the state. I think if you ask me just largely what should happen, I think a universal basic income for individuals to go a long way to solving some of these issues. But in the meantime, I said there are individual programs that are available. And at La Casa Norte, if individuals want to learn more about some of the services that we provide or the rental assistance programs that are available, they can visit us at lacasanorte.org to learn more.
Okay, and that UBI is something we hear a lot about, especially these days. Jeff Smith and Jose Munoz, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.